egg, this process is called what?
Genesis.
I'm laughing because of one of the answer choices. During ovulation, when the egg is released from the ovaries, the torn tissue in the ovaries is called the corpus what? Not the Corpus Christi. I went to church on Sunday. And so I was just like, might as well, right? And so number 3, which of the following is the innermost lining of the uterus? That is the endometrium. Endometrium is an epithelial lining that sloughs off when someone is going through menstruation. Okay, most pregnancies take place, the fertilization, joining of egg and sperm takes place where, guys? Fallopian tubes. For 75 to 80% of those pregnancies take place in the fallopian tubes. What is the function of the Leydig cells? They are known to what? Produce testosterone. Very good. What happens to the uterus at the presence of luteinizing hormone? Does it slough off or does it get thicker? Luteinizing hormone gets it to go thicker, gets it to get thicker. So it gets really, really thick. So just know, guys, in the future you'll learn that luteinizing hormone in physiology will cause the release of progesterone. Pro means for, gestation is pregnancy. That causes the uterine lining to get thicker. Just do luteinizing hormone equals uterus thicker. Number 7, what is ovulation, guys? It's the what of an egg? Release of an egg at day 14. Day 14. Release of an egg at day 14. Speaking of the female sexual reproductive cycle, how many days is it from 0 to 28 days? 0 to 28 days. What type of tissue is present in the myometrium? That's a little part of a question. The myometrium, you have to know it's muscle, and you have to know it's smooth muscle. You cannot control that, so it's smooth muscle. None of the other ones. Stratified, it would have been stratified squamous if you're talking about the endometrium, but that's not what we're talking about in this case. And then number 10 is A. So,
oh man.
Damn it. Corpus luteum. Corpus Christi. It's okay. Okay. I know. Why do I have to do this out of Okay, alright guys, and then towards the end, just remind me, we'll go over a quiz, like a quiz or two, that are in the past. But for the sake of time, let's finish off the endocrine system. The endocrine system has a lot of repetition, so let's talk about that repetition real quick. So in this case, the one you have to note with the endocrine system is MPG flat AO. MPG flat AO. So test questions, because we don't have no more quizzes, so you'll see this on the press for lecture exam 4. We'll talk about what to cover. But test question, what did we say was the very top of the hierarchy? The hypothalamus. Hypothalamus then controls the master gland, pituitary. It splits up into 2 regions, the anterior and the posterior pituitary. In the anterior, we memorize it's MPG flat, and then in the posterior, it's antidiuretic hormone and oxytocin. Okay. Melanocyte-stimulating hormone, is it always necessary in the body? No. It's only necessary for a lot of individuals going through pregnancy, where dark regions of their skin darken for whatever reason that we have talked about. And so over here, prolactin, yeah. Melanos or MSH, melanocyte stimulating hormone. Prolactin means for milk, so it allows the cells to produce milk, for milk. Growth hormone allows you to grow during puberty long ways, but then grows thicker bones after puberty. Follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, you would pick an answer choice that has something to do with sexual reproduction. Follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone has something to do with sexual reproduction. If you have an answer choice talking about the function of FSH saying like, hey, the release of an egg, ovulation, pick that, because everything else is going to be not part of sexual reproduction. Yeah.
I was going to say, yeah, how to do it distinguish.
Oh, yeah. So FSH produces sperm for males and then produces eggs, releases eggs for females. FSH. Luteinizing hormone thickens the uterus for a female. LH, luteinizing hormone. ACTH, that's questions. ACTH stands for adrenocorticotropic hormone. And so, what part of the adrenal gland is stimulated with ACTH?
Cortex.
The adrenal cortex, which causes the adrenal cortex to release C4, cortisol. Cortisol. Very good. So cortisol is a long-term stress hormone. Chances are, as of right now, everyone in America has high levels of cortisol after the age of 21, in this case. And so now let's talk a little bit about T. T stands for TSH. What is the correct organ that is stimulated by TSH?
Thyroid.
Thyroid. The thyroid, when stimulated, releases thyroxine, which its function of thyroxine helps to regulate what two processes? Like metabolism and then temperature. Good. So that's where we left off, guys. Antidiuretic hormone causes you to retain water. Oxytocin, touch, helps you childbirth, vaginal contractions, but also helps you release milk, as long as the baby is touching the areola of the body. So now let's go and leave off. We're going to see those exact same hormones again. Before we go, though, into the hormones, we want to talk about an example of antagonistic hormones. What are antagonistic hormones, guys? They're hormones that do what? Do the opposite effect of each other. Insulin, you have to remember, increases or decreases blood glucose? Decreases, because the glucose is going in your cells. The glucagon increases blood glucose by triggering what organ to make more new glucose? The liver. Good job. You guys are really good. So the liver is stimulated by glucagon, causes gluconeogenesis. I don't think I'll test gluconeogenesis. You just need to know liver is stimulated by glucagon. Okay. And so we covered the anterior, posterior. Those are the several hormones you have to note. I'll only be testing, guys, by recognition. Like MSH, which of the following is the correct hormone that darkens the skin? Easy, MSH. That's simple. Which of the following is the hormone, the harder one, that is known to produce milk? It's not oxytocin that's releasing milk. It's prolactin. Produce milk is the word for prolactin. Okay. And so now let's talk a little bit about the so oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone are the only two hormones released in the posterior pituitary gland. So please remember that, guys. Which of the following answer choices below is not a hormone released in the posterior pituitary gland? ADH and oxytocin are. ADH and oxytocin. And so now let's go into the glands that are affected in this case. This one could be very high yield. Very, very high yield, guys. FSH and LH, they have everything to do with what topic again, guys? Sexual reproduction. So then we would obviously go back to the sexual reproduction lecture. I would guess they affect your ovaries and your testes for men. That's FSH and LH. TSH, what was the organ affected, guys? Thyroid. ACTH is the adrenal cortex. Take a wild guess, guys, but prolactin, what is the organ that is affected? Yeah, the rest were the mammary gland of the female, most likely. But prolactin can also be activated for males, but not as common. MSH, melanocytes, and growth hormone is everywhere. Growth hormone's everywhere. Okay, so now we can skip these hormone cascade effects. They just want you to know this is what happens, guys. You have a stimulus. There is a neuron that causes the release of the endocrine hormones. That's pretty much it. So let's go to the next slide and talk a little bit about tropic hormones. Tropic hormones, if you hear that term for hormones, they are hormones that affect other endocrine glands. Tropic hormones are hormones that affect other endocrine glands. Question for you guys, is growth hormone a tropic hormone? Does it affect other endocrine glands? Not necessarily. It affects your bone. It affects your other ones, but not endocrine glands. These are your tropic hormones. So definitely memorize them. Thyroid stimulating hormone stimulates the thyroid to produce another hormone, thyroxine, T3, T4. Follicle stimulating hormone stimulates the ovaries and testes to in turn produce testosterone and estrogen, another hormone. Luteinizing hormone causes you to release progesterone that you don't need to know, but it's another hormone, LH. Adrenocorticotropic hormone stimulates the adrenal cortex to release big C4. What is the long-term stress hormone? Cortisol. All of those are hormones at the end. they are hormones, trophic hormones, that causes you to release more hormones. Growth hormone doesn't do that. Growth hormone doesn't do that. Prolactin doesn't do that. Oxytocin doesn't do that. These are hormones that causes you to release other hormones. Okay? So remember that. Which of the following is not a trophic hormone? These four are. They cause you to release other hormones. Non-tropic hormones such as prolactin, MSH, growth hormone, all are non-tropic hormones. They are hormones that cause you to change your behavior but not emit another hormone. Prolactin causes you to start lactation. MSH influences the cells to make more melanin. No hormones involved after that. Just one hormone and no other hormone. They're non-tropic. Okay. So I'll say it one more time for the students taking notes. Prolactin is a non-tropic hormone. Growth hormone is a non-tropic hormone. MSH is a non-tropic hormone. They are hormones that causes the influence of cells to change their behavior, but there's no other hormones after that involved. So remember that, guys, on this slide. I'll just start for the sake of time. Okay, growth hormone is another non-tropic hormone. I don't really need to go into it. There is one thing I do want to go into, which is that last point. So if you have a, let's say, a hormonal imbalance, let's say you have a tumor that's causing you to stop releasing growth hormone. A tumor may be in the hypothalamus, you'll learn in physio, but it causes everything to stop with growth hormone. If you are going through puberty and the tumor happens during that time, you don't release growth hormone, that is pituitary dwarfism, where you see people that are considerably very, very short compared to the average height. That is pituitary dwarfism. What we can do in the lab or in medication is we can give them in lab growth hormone, but for whatever reason we still can't explain it. It only works for 50% of the population. It has something to do with the fact that the lab hormone is not the same as the actual hormone. Why is it, Professor? We're still trying to find out, but we're very sensitive to those small differences. But if it happens after, let me show you guys. We have a pituitary that you don't need to know, but it's kind of... Remember, I told you guys after puberty, what does it do with bones? Make them grow longer or thicker? Yeah, thicker. If you're producing an oversecretion of growth hormone after puberty, we have you don't get longer, but every part of your bone gets thicker. Your hands, the eyebrow ridges, your feet, your whole face, over here, your whole face. Let's see. Your whole face gets thicker and very heavy in this case. Does anyone know if you have a tumor that secretes during puberty too much growth hormone? That's pituitary, not dwarfism. That's what you see. Have you guys ever seen like an 8.5 foot tall individual, and because of a growth hormone imbalance, pituitary, it's in the name, gigantism. These are individuals that really go very, very tall. They grow super huge compared to a normal individual. They have had a growth hormone secretion, oversecretion at the time of puberty. These are organisms or humans that usually don't live a long time, because what doesn't grow the size of the growth hormone is growing is your heart. Their heart is still around the same size as a normal human being, which most of them will suffer complications and usually pass away between the ages of 20 to 30, even before that too. A lot of it is heart complications because the heart can't support a body that big. So again, the heart doesn't grow with the body, so that person will suffer those complications. They'll make a really cool basketball player for the small amount of time. Like, trust me, a lot of people were tempted to try to recruit them, but a lot of them will pass away in the court because of their heart. So just keep that in mind. A lot of them pass away in the past because of their heart. So, okay, the thyroid gland, after it gets the stimulation of TSH, it will release thyroxine, which is otherwise known as two things with numbers, T3 and T4. T3 and T4. For the Bio-6 students that took me in the past, I hopefully you recall, guys, in chapter 2, I told you guys that, hey, we were making a point about trace elements. And I said, hey, iodine is only needed in small amounts. Can you go a day or two without it? And I showed you guys a person with like a big, it's called goiter. It's called goiter. And why is that the case? So goiter due to iodine deficiency. I showed you guys in Bio 6 this individual right here. So again, in the early 1900s, there weren't that many fish coming into the Central America. So a lot of people, 100 patients, 90 of them were showing up to their doctors with this big mass. Their thyroid gland is inflamed. What happens is if you lack iodine, now we're going to go full circle, since we're almost done with the 2 courses. Well, the iodine is needed to make T3, T4. It's in the name, triiodothyronine. You need iodine to make T3 and T4. If you don't have iodine, the thyroid gland will try to overwork and get inflamed, which is why you have goiter due to iodine deficiency. So T3 and T4 is, iodine is necessary. What 2 things did we say it regulates? Number 1, temperature and metabolism. Temperature and metabolism. That's why you need dietary iodine. Do we have to worry about eating iodine, guys? We don't have to worry because it's snuck into what we studied in salt. It's snuck in your salt. I showed you guys, if you go into your parents' place, I showed them a picture, Morton's iodized salt. It's a black label, you already know it. You can see it in your parents' place, trust. Okay, so what happens when we have too much or too little? It's usually a genetic component with the person's ethnicity, unfortunately. For Asian descent, we usually suffer this for females, unfortunately. There's 2. There's called hyperthyroidism, where you have a fast metabolism, you're very skinny, low in BMI, but you're also very hot, no matter what temperature it is. That hyperthyroidism is otherwise known as Graves' disease. And what happens is because of all of this too much metabolism, certain parts of your body, it's also an autoimmune disorder, certain parts of your body get inflamed. And what's kind of scary and unfortunate, people with Graves' disease, the fact that a lot of parts of their body get inflamed due to it being an autoimmune disorder, they suffer, number 1, they can't put on contacts at all because their eyes can run the risk of being popped out of their socket. What happens is the eyes in the back are kept with a socket, and Graves' disease causes inflammation that pushes the eyes out. And then at some point when Graves' disease is very bad and they're going through a flare-up, their eyes can actually get very close to popping out of its socket, which is why they're rendered, they cannot do contacts at all. I'm going to leave that there. He doesn't ever pose it, but you're like, Professor, can you search something up? You're trying to get it to open it up. Let's go to the hypothyroidism. Low amounts of thyroid glands, higher BMI, cold. Look guys, intolerance to cold. They can't handle it because they can't regulate it. So number 1, hyperthyroidism, too high temperature body, weight loss, easy, metabolism too much, temperature too much. Hypothyroidism, metabolism too low, high BMI, temperature too low, they can't regulate it. So they are intolerant to cold. They get cold very, very easily. Even right now, you can touch a person with hypothyroidism and they're cold to the touch. Even right now being hot. Okay, so another example of antagonistic hormones, guys. We have calcitonin in parathyroid hormone. Look at this. This is how you remember it, even in physiology. You guys will thank me for doing this. Guys, calcitonin should be a hint. What is in the blood that's increasing or decreasing? Calcium. Calcium is very necessary. You name it. Okay? Look at this. I think I told you guys a story though. There was an individual, so PTH is parathyroid hormone, and calcitonin, I'll just do CAL. Watch. Replace the T with an up arrow, and put the L with calcitonin with a down. PTH increases calcium in blood, and calcitonin decreases calcium in blood. You cannot get tricked anymore. PTH, up arrow on the T, increases blood calcium, and calcitonin decreases them. Question for you guys. I'm going to need this right here. Okay. Where are we getting the calcium from, guys? Where do you think is high in calcium? Bone. If I have, let's say, calcitonin, right? You have to have a balance of eating enough calcium in your diet. If you don't, we're going to break down your bones instead. So for example, people who have albinism or albino, they cannot go into the sun. They can't because they'll get skin cancer. What they do is they have to avoid the sun. In the integumentary system, we established that you meet the sun, you release calcium. You take in calcium. So again, these people, they have to avoid the sun. They have to actually take calcium supplements. Always, all the time. They are always calcium deficient. The only thing is, I told you guys, I find out that patients lie. And this was also in the Bio 6 lecture, where there was one patient, and I was shadowing a doctor. He had albinism, and then he lied. He says, hey, the doctor says, have you been taking your calcium supplements? Yeah, doctor, every day I have. And then all of a sudden, so you know that if he's calcium deficient, he lied, he will have a lot of calcitonin that will, PTH. PTH, in order to increase the calcium in the blood, guess what they have to break down? The bone. They chew it up. When he got off, guys, this is the doctor's office, right? You're sitting on the chair. You have only a foot that's separated, and I'm sure some of you guys remember it. But when he dropped off, his femur snapped in half. The bone everywhere. So, like, the guy dropped the femur in half, and, you know, for me, I was like, what the hell? I dropped too. Like, I passed out. The guy was so stupid because the guy made the mistake. Well, number one, he's like, Tim, we need to pick this patient up. We need to reconnect it. I was like, what? What are you talking about? I'm not going to do that. And so when he did the mistake, though, what he did is he was trying to say everything's okay, but he put the patient's face to my face. And when he's like, oh, everything's okay and everything, I was like it's not okay at this point. Just note, guys, these are the hormones that I was like, ooh, you're going to die. Sorry, I don't know. I'm surprised, you know? And so just note, guys, PTH and calcitonin. If you don't consume enough calcium, your body will release PTH to break down calcium in your bones and put it in your blood. If you have too much calcium, which is good, your body will release calcitonin to take away the calcium from the blood and put the excess calcium where? Back in your bone. Produce enough calcium, release calcitonin, you put that calcium back in the bone. Make it up, right? But all of those are antagonistic hormones because they go against each other. So again, if I ask you what are the two antagonistic hormones for calcium, the hormones are PTH, increases blood calcium, and then calcitonin, lower the down arrow on the L, decreases blood calcium by putting the calcium in the blood. It's really hard to get tricked now, guys, if we have those small things. Notice in physiology, you either find shortcuts and you remember things and do well, or you don't find shortcuts and you forget things. Trust me, you either find the shortcuts or you don't. Shortcuts are everything. You may think it's not. So yeah, guys, that's what it is. The how it does it, I don't really care for. That's more physiology. But calcitonin, guys, PTH, calcium in the blood causes you to degrade bones. Bones will release it, break it down. While calcitonin causes you to deposit the calcium in the bones. That's it, right? That's the best we can do. Yes?
Is gluten the one that's also like related?
Yeah, it is in some way, but I forget how it is. So if you ever find out, just let me know. It's a really cool question. Guys, we have the adrenal gland. Everything you should associate is that is the gland that is equal stress. Adrenal gland is the stress gland. Here you have your kidneys, and the adrenal gland is a triangular gland on top of your kidneys, which I'm sure you guys might get a test question on for that. The only thing is, we can't really ask that for a lot of people. The adrenal gland starts to disintegrate. If we have a fetal pig in the past where we had you guys do a fetal pig, we can't ask you the adrenal gland because the fetal pig doesn't have it fully developed. But for some organisms there are. So look for that if you are going to get tested. It's always on top of the kidneys. Always, no matter what organism. So the adrenal gland, what was the outer portion of the adrenal gland called? The cortex or the medulla?
Cortex.
Good job. The adrenal, C for cortex, releases C for cortisol. And cortisol was a long-term or short-term stress? Long-term stress. The one that we're here for, with a bear running at us 30 miles an hour, is the medulla that releases the well-known legendary epinephrine, otherwise known as adrenaline. Epinephrine or adrenaline, interchangeable. Which of the following answer choices below is the correct region of the adrenal gland that releases epinephrine? It's not the cortex, C for cortisol, it is the medulla. It's the one that releases epinephrine. Okay. What adrenaline actually is, guys, is the weirdest, most interesting process where a person actually dies in front of another person, in front of the doctors. And it's one of the legendary things that doctors watch that person die. You can even sue against them. The doctors are so curious. It is norepinephrine and epinephrine. Both them together is what makes up adrenaline. Adrenaline is the combination of epinephrine and norepinephrine. And those are both released from the medulla. Epinephrine and norepinephrine is released in the medulla. Okay. What happens is when usually someone cold blues, we call it cold blue, when someone's heart is at stake, at risk, what usually happens is, you shock them, which we established that you shock them a certain way, not always, but you also inject them with norepinephrine. Norepinephrine either jumpstarts the heart, if we have just the right amount, or it can stop the heart when we need to. There's a famous surgery, guys. It is the closest thing that someone feels to death. It's probably the most ominous, the darkest thing someone's ever felt, is when they need to stop the heart in front of the person being alive, where they have to stop the person's heart in front of them dying, like they're alive, and they inject you with norepinephrine, and you just wait there. They said it's the most ominous feeling that they die for a couple seconds, and it's so famous that doctors, nurses crowd around the person to watch, which is so weird. Like, if you're gonna die, I don't want to be watched, but there's so many doctors and nurses that are so curious. But you can look up the interviews. They feel the worst type of dread you can ever feel for just a second, but they feel it's like an eternity. That's when norepinephrine touches your heart and it stops. They have to stop it sometimes, where the person has to clinically die while the person's alive, and you feel it. You black out, but you feel the dread into it. That's some homework that you guys can look up. It's really, really interesting. Okay, so the fight or flight, the adrenaline, not cortisol. Adrenaline is the one that triggers the fight or flight response. Adrenaline, and we'll learn later on Wednesday or Thursday what the fight or flight is. I like to think about it as adrenaline is preparing you for fight or flight. It's usually the 4 F's actually on top of fight or flight. Fight, flight, freeze, and sexual reproduction. The F word, right? Fight, flight, freeze, or sexual reproduction is the 4 F's of adrenaline. That's usually what's released during those 4 times. You either fight, or you freeze, depending on what your body calculates. Smaller organisms would usually freeze, or it'll also be released during sexual reproduction. Okay, yeah, right? And so, what does it do? Epinephrine affects all of your body, guys. Epinephrine will cause your skeletal muscles to have more blood, so you can actually fight. It causes more blood to be concentrated adrenaline to either your arms, fight, or your legs, flight, or also it can freeze you too, with a lot of adrenaline through your body. Depends on what your body calculates at that time. The release of epinephrine and norepinephrine will trigger it's coming from the hypothalamus. One more time, guys. The hypothalamus, look at this. We have longer areas. So remember the endocrine system, usually it's hypothalamus, pituitary gland, and another endocrine organ. But we want to shortcut that. I told you we use the nervous system when we want a fast response. So this is the endocrine system, and then we have a special system where we just say hypothalamus says, oh, they're running towards you, we can't use your endocrine system, let's just immediately get the adrenal medulla by nervous system fast to release epinephrine and adrenaline. Look how the adrenal medulla is special. It doesn't have this whole thing that's too slow, so the wire is directly into the medulla, where the hypothalamus calculates, they see a bear running towards you, they don't want to use the endocrine system, they'll immediately just get the adrenal medulla to release epinephrine fast. Very, very fast. Faster than you can even blink. You'll be able to do a lot of inhuman things. Really, really strong things. Okay, so that's one. Adrenal cortex releases C4 what again, guys? Cortisol. And cortisol is long-term stress. Guys, cortisol, I'll say right now, it's probably the number one reason besides diet that causes cardiovascular disease. Let's just think about what you need to prepare for long-term stress. If you're worrying constantly, you don't actually check it, but you're worrying constantly about an exam in the future, your body immediately thinks you need to raise your heart rate a little so that it can prepare you for the studying. your body immediately thinks that you need to easily store fat, which is why you gain fat easier, so that it can give you some more fuel for the studying. Your body immediately thinks that it needs to raise your blood pressure to equip you for the studying. If you don't check the cortisol levels, then imagine that for years, where a lot of the accumulation of fat's going to your arteries, you name it, your heart is speeding 1.5 times faster. It's going to take away some life expectancy for you guys. So long-term stress, fine, but short-term stress, manage. Chances are, like a test, sure, but it's not going to, we want to remind us that a lot of the things that trigger cortisol should not kill us. So meaning that we don't have to have an efficient, or we have to have an efficient response. But again, too much cortisol in our body is very bad. Stress management is very, very important. And let's skip the glucocorticoids and mineralocorticoids. That's fine, they help you take in minerals. Let's skip that. So last couple ones, guys. We have only 4 more slides. Finally, is we have the gonads. Testes and ovaries are 2 different hormones, or 2 different organs. We covered the fact that ovaries release egg, testes produce what? Sperm. The other half of their jobs is the ovaries, known to produce 2 hormones, estrogen, female characteristics, and progesterone. Estrogen, progesterone. What happens, guys, I told you, usually if you see a lot of birth control, a lot of them are estrogen plus progesterone or progesterone only. What happens is if we see that when the body is pregnant, it'll stop releasing an egg. We notice that the estrogen levels are yay high and progesterone levels are yay high. A smart person who developed birth control can say, oh, why don't we just give a person these levels to make it yay high? What happens to the ovulation? It stops. The body thinks it's pregnant. And again, someone's like, let's save money. Can we just do progesterone only? And we notice that all you need is progesterone to put it at high, and then the person thinks it's in gestation. The person thinks they're pregnant. They don't release an egg. So there's 2 types of birth controls, estrogen plus progesterone, and progesterone only. Just manipulate how it looks like when you're pregnant, and the body will think you're pregnant. That's what birth control is. Is Plan B the same, though? I think I covered that. Plan B is not. Plan B causes your uterus to not stick the egg. So again, your uterus, even if you're pregnant and the baby's growing, Plan B will cause it to not stick the implant the egg, or the zygote, and it'll just slop up. So whether there was pregnancy or not, technically some people are pregnant during taking Plan B. It's just that the Plan B doesn't impregnate the uterus. The uterus doesn't take the baby. Okay, one thing to note is estrogen, otherwise known as estradiol, equal female characteristics of sexual reproduction and secondary characteristics. People who take estrogen, I don't care if you're male or female, the secondary characteristic is the development of mammary glands, the thickness of mammary glands, the adipose tissue in them, where you store your fat, the degradation of the larynx or the voice box so that it gets smaller. I don't care male or female, but if you take estrogen pills, that's what happens. That's what happens too. You'll also notice that if you take estrogen and drop off testosterone, we hate this for the guys, but the guys, what happens is your hair, when you get older, gets very sensitive to the amount of testosterone in your body. Testosterone, when you get older, kills your hair, which is why for guys, and I notice it for girls, they don't suffer with this, but usually guys start to have receding hairlines as they get older and older and older, because the testosterone gets toxic to your hairlines. For females, no hair. Let's go to the next slide. What did we say pineal gland does, guys? It releases a sleepy hormone. Melatonin. When does melatonin get released? At the presence or absence of light?
Absence.
Okay. And so remember when I told you guys back in the time, I think plants, the way they do it is the way their cycles are controlled is by the regulation of the light and dark cycles. Same thing with humans too. The way you know when you're awake is the amount of light that is absent and the amount of melatonin that is secreted. If you are watching TV while it's supposed to be dark, that messes up your biological cycle, meaning that you think light is on for hours long and your body doesn't regenerate enough. So you need to manipulate melatonin so that it's on for a couple hours, like 8 hours in this case. Melatonin is interesting, guys, because melatonin also causes you to release, true or false, in humans, does it give you a lot, is it dangerous for you to move while you sleep? Move a lot. Yes. The people who don't have this chemical present, they'll move into traffic, they'll sleepwalk. So most of the time what happens, I've gone through this a couple of times, guys, when you're stressed. What happens is at the same time melatonin is released, you also get a paralysis chemical. And sometimes that chemical, if someone wakes up before that chemical goes away, we have sleep paralysis. Has that ever happened to you guys?
My mom and my
That
sister are
happened.
having it.
Yeah, that happened to me. It happens when you're very sick or when you get woken up, when you still have the chemical in your body, and it feels like forever, but it's only there for like a second or two. And you cannot move. So I'm awake, I can't move. I try to call for my mom, but I can't even speak.
No, why do you?
I call for my mom. Mom! Yeah, save me.
Why does it feel like that happens when you're
When you life, I'm not too sure. There could be studies that back it up, and maybe more of the chemicals are secreted there. But most of the time, what happens is you wake up before the chemical goes away. And so, yeah, like I've done that a couple times, and I couldn't move. I've done it. There was one time I got it so many times that I just accepted it. So, I died. Yes.
So why did it stay there or?
It's chemicals move slower than anything else, like electricity. You wake up, that's electricity, and chemicals take a long time to metabolize. So that's why it can happen in a couple seconds. It usually has to go away before you wake up. But usually if someone like nudges you, that happened freaking during college, and I'm like, I can't move.
But when people are like really like sleepers, so they're really like sleepers too.
Yeah. Usually you'll wake up easier like that. So with that being said, guys, let's talk a little bit about some of the quizzes, which... Crap. Well, okay, so actually not the quizzes, but let's talk a little bit. The quizzes, we'll just do a mass of them on Thursday, and then we'll review again on Tuesday after the exam. You can stay after for more of the quizzes. But let's talk about these exam questions, the final exam questions. Remember, I told the reason why I'm kind of putting you guys into that exam mode on the final. It is A and B, but then they did a lot for the fact that I have to ask you guys. There will be some questions that were covered, and some of the questions are phylum questions. So let's just give you some freebies in regards to the very top ones. For example, well, let's see if you guys can get this. Let's have some fun. Photosynthetic bacteria phylum. Would that be Crineo-Arcata or Cyanobacteria? Cyanobacteria, A or B, whatever that answer choice is. And I'll give you some stuff to look up so you're still doing the work and I'm not really eating this too much of the answers. Can anyone tell me the phylum of Paramecium? Starts with a C. Tiny little hairs, so it's Ciliophora. Paramecium. Ciliophora. What can you tell me is the phylum? This one was a quiz question, but it's only an A/B answer choice of red algae. Red algae. Yeah, is it Phyophyta or Rhodophyta? What was it? Rhodophyta, good. Yeah, good. Last but not least there are a couple more. The phylum of radiolarians, is it Actinopoda or Foraminifera? Good, okay, so yeah, it's covered in lab too, but I just want to make sure you guys get it. Ooh, okay, last couple ones is the association between fungus and plants that they work together. What is that called? It starts with an M. So it is a mutualistic relationship, but there's something more specific on top of that. Myco means fungi. Mycorrhizae is the relationship.
What was it?
The relationship between fungi and plants. Little review, guys. What can you tell me is the phylum of pine trees? Is it Coniferophyta or Cicarophyta? Okay. I'm taking his credit. I'm like, oh, I did so well. It's still out. Okay. Yeah, that's it for now, guys, and then we'll sprinkle in the rest. I'll try to cover as many of the quiz questions on Thursday that I'll copy and paste for them.
These are like the ones that are in lab too.
Yeah, for this, the CLO is between lecture and lab, but I give it during lecture. But a lot of the lectures or the lab stuff is literally the phylum, and you guys are getting it pretty well. It's an A and B answer.
I know.
We'll still go over the rest too in a couple more. There'll be more, but I skipped around the ones that are very recognizable. I only want to cover the ones that I didn't cover in lecture either. So I want to make sure you guys get it. Okay, guys, you're good for today. And then just wait until Dr.
That was for the final exam, and then for the lecture exam.
Next week on Tuesday will just be on the chapters we haven't covered. Oh, yeah, let me narrow that. I'm sending an email. I'm making an announcement of the chapters. So we'll test them. I know urinary system's not going to be tested. Yeah, and there's Reproductive will be the last. But either, let me look at the ones, see if I can get done. I want to give it a 4 or 5.
Celia 4 for pregnancy. Cyanobacteria.
Oh no, they won't. So endocrine and nervous system. Those
Yeah,
will be the
it was like the glowing. You know the when the algae glows?
the topic after lecture.
The cyanobacteria.
Yeah. If it's not the 4 or 5, then that's fine.
I'll double check it.
I'll call him over, guys. He's gonna hand out, guys, the sign-in sheet for your last lab next Thursday. So, see if you can sign up.
Then I gotta study.
You will get extra points from the quiz, guys, but again, the last lab is usually higher averages than obviously lab exam 2. So please mark it off with that, guys.
Which one? That was at the roto, right? I forgot. I forgot what they are already. At Tini Opoda, I think that was the one. No. I just